thought we would get back to making some cute little stuffies, and this is a great intro or beginner to amigurumi if you've never made any before. This is a narwhal. These are those adorable little whales with the great long horns in the middle of their foreheads up in the Arctic Ocean. These ones obviously, being amigurumi, are sort of the cute, chubby, stumpy versions of the real things. And these are great, made out of scraps. You don't have to go out and get anything special for these. I'm sure everything you've got in your house right now can make you a whole pile of them. So let's make ourselves a pod of narwhals today. Let's go. For our happy little narwhal today, we are going to need a main body hook, which in this case is going to be a 4.25 millimeter or a G6. I'm going to use a nice worsted weight in size 4 for his body. For his horn, I'm going to use a size 3 worsted weight, so slightly skinnier yarn, and because I'm going to downsize my yarn, I'm also going to get a slightly smaller hook for the horn. And this one's just a little smaller. It's 3.75 millimeters or an F5. His little cheeks are really, really thin. You can use embroidery floss, or if you've got sock weight yarn, or also known as fingering weight yarn, you can use that too. I'm going to use this nice little soft pink, and you can see that it's really thin yarn. For his mouth, I'm going to use either embroidery floss or equally small yarn. This is also a size 2. His cheeks are going to be made using a size 3 millimeter hook. Now you can use the same size hook as you use for the horn because this is smaller yarn. It's all up to you. I just like downsizing my hook every time I downsize the size of my yarn. You're also going to need 2 little black beads or black buttons for the eyes. You're going to need a needle and thread to sew the eyes on, and of course you're going to need some stuffing. It's also always good to have your scissors and a yarn needle on hand to snip your thread and weave in your ends. So let's go! We're going to start with the nose section of our narwhal, and we're going to begin by making a cinch circle. So you hold your yarn and wrap it around your fingers, grab your working hook, and I like to make this with the hook. So you go through, grab the yarn, and just pull it up like that. And before you let go, yarn over, or wrap your yarn around your hook, and chain 1. And that secures your cinch circle. And I'm going to make my cinch circle just a little bit smaller, because it doesn't have to be that big to work into. You're going to put 6 single crochets into this cinch circle. And you work right through the circle. That's 1 single crochet. I'm going to work over my little tail because I like to weave things in as I go. 2 single crochets. 3, 4, 5, and 6. And once you've placed your 6 single crochets inside your cinch circle, grab the short tail and cinch it shut. There you go. Into row 2, we're going to keep right on going. We're not going to join with a slip stitch. We're going to work directly into the next single crochet, which is the first one we made into the circle. We're going to start row 2, and we're going to put 2 single crochets into each single crochet of the previous row all the way around. So we have 6 in row 1. When we're finished row 2, we're going to have 12. So I'm going to continue to work over top of my little tail here, and I'm going to go 1, 2 into the first stitch, 1, 2 into the next stitch, 1, 2 into the next stitch. I'm at 6, and now I just like to count straight. So 7, 8, 9, 10, and the last 2, 11, and 12. All right, that's row 2. Row 3, we're going to do 1 more row of increase. We're going to keep on going into that next single crochet. So the next stitch along, you're going to single crochet 2. I'm still working over that little short tail. 1, 2. And into the next stitch, a single crochet, 3. And that's the pattern for row 3. So we've gone from 6 to 12, and now row 3 is going to be 18. So you're going to single crochet 2 into the next stitch, single crochet 1, single crochet 2 into the next stitch, single crochet 1, and so on until you get to 18. Once you've finished row 3, it's always a good idea to count to make sure you've got the right number of stitches. So I like to start not with this stitch, you see that the last single crochet was placed into, but the one right next to it. So I go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, and 18 is the last stitch. This doesn't count because it's the loop and it's your working loop. So there you go, 18. Now we're going to make the body. So rows 4 through 7 are just going to be straight single crochet all the way around. And if you feel you need to, you can always place a stitch marker when you start making in the round things. I don't, and here's my little tip. Here's my row 1, and as row 1 turned into row 2, you can see that little bump there, right? So there's the circle and then boom, the little bump where row 2 began. I'm going to treat this as my North Star, or the point from which I reference all my successive rows. So when I finish row 7, I'm going to even up all of my stitches to be in line with this little spot. So my last stitch will end up right above it. And I'll show you what I mean when I get to the end of row 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm just coming around to finishing my 7th row, and I can do that by counting. So this is row 1, row 2, row 3, row 4, 5, 6, and 7. And there's my start point, or the point I'm going to use as my reference. You can always stick in a stitch marker if you're more comfortable with that, but I can clearly see where my first and second rows join. So I go straight up from there, boop, boop, and that's where I leave my last stitch on row 7. And that hasn't changed my stitch count. I still have 18 stitches all the way around. And that is, so far, the body of our little narwhal. All right, now we're going to do a little bit of decreasing. So we're going to single crochet 2 stitches together. So you insert your hook in the next stitch and pull up a loop just like you were going to single crochet, and then you insert your hook in the next stitch and pull up a loop so that you've got 3 loops on your hook across 2 stitches. Wrap your yarn and pull it back through all 3 loops. That's single crocheting 2 stitches together. Then you're going to single crochet once normally into the stitch next to that one. Then you're going to single crochet 2 stitches together and single crochet normally into the next one. And you're going to repeat this little pattern all the way around until you've gotten down from 18 to 12 stitches. And remember, it's always good to count when you get to the end of your row, just so you know you've got the right number. Alright, so I'm at the end of the row and I'm going to count my stitches. So there is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So 12. Down to 12. Now we're going to do a couple of another decrease, but not a typical whole row decrease. So we're going to single crochet the next 2 stitches together. There we go. Single crochet the next 2 stitches together. So that's 2 decreases, and single crochet the next 2 stitches together. So that's a total of 3 decreases in row 9. Then you're just going to single crochet into the next, I guess that would be 6 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. You should now have a total of 9 stitches at the end of row 9. So let's count. We don't count this one because that's the one that's being worked. I'll get my hook out of the way. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So we've gone from 12 to 9. That's the end of row 9. Now we're going to single crochet straight for a little while. We're going to do 3 rows. So rows 10, 11, and 12 are just going to be regular old single crochet all the way around. And you're going to do the same thing when you're finished row 12. You're going to make sure that it lines up again with the top of your little reference point. So I'll see you at the end of row 12. Alright, so I've finished row 12 and there's my reference point, and you can see that my last stitch of row 12 lines up evenly with it. And that's it for the body of our narwhal. Oh, got a little bit of stuffing here. And I'm just going to tear off some little pieces. And you don't want to overstuff. If you're wondering why my stuffing looks so funny, it's because this is actually some quilt batting that I had left over from another project, and I thought I would just use it up. So, when you're stuffing a little amigurumi, you want to make your stuffing in small little bits, and then just tuck it in with a finger or a pencil or even a bigger crochet hook if you have to, because you want your stuffing to be nice and even. Because you want your little stuffed toy to maintain the shape that you've worked so hard to stitch into it. Alright, I'm just going to stuff in this last little bit of stuffing, just so it's just inside this area, because I don't want it to be too firm, but I don't want it to be too squishy either. Now, I'm going to put my hook back in. So once you're all finished stuffing, you can tuck a little bit more in there, just so that it's just underneath the lip of where you're working, because when you squish it around after you're finished, it'll even itself out. Now we're going to put on the tail, or I guess the more appropriate terminology would be the flange, I think. These are both sides of the big tail that whales have. So what you're going to do is you're going to squeeze the end of your little fish body shut, just like that, and you're going to chain 3. 1, 2, 3. You're going to identify this little stitch at the edge. So it's not really going through the tops of these two. You're going to do that later. You're going to actually work into this little stitch here. It's sort of like the end or the corner. And you're going to identify it, make it a bit bigger so that you can work into it. You're going to double crochet 6 into that corner. So wrap your yarn around your hook, stick it through that little corner stitch, and double crochet 6 times. 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. All right, so that's chain 3 and 6 double crochets. Now you're going to single crochet into the 3 sets of the stitches that you've got across the back. So you're going to put your hook through one set of stitches, so the front and the back of the tail, and just single crochet once, and then put your hook through the next set of stitches and single crochet once, and there's going to be one more true set of stitches back here. Just stick your hook through that and single crochet once. You're going to run into the same thing that you had at the other corner. So there's a corner stitch, and you're going to treat this post of this last stitch as the area that you're going to work into. And you're going to double crochet 6 times into that last corner piece. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and one more, 6. And we're going to finish off this tail like we started. We're going to chain 3, 1, 2, 3, and you're going to slip stitch into that same place that you've been putting all of your double crochets. So just slip stitch. Then take your scissors, snip your yarn, and just tug that nice and tight. He's already trying to swim away from me. Look at that. And then you can take your trusty little yarn needle and weave that tail of yarn back into the tail of your whale. And there is our little whale. Now he can be just a regular whale if you'd like. You don't have to put the horn on, but I have such a fondness for narwhals that I'm going to show you guys how to make the horn now. The yarn I'm going to use for the horn on my narwhal is this slightly thinner worsted weight acrylic. It's about a size 3 as opposed to a size 4 like I made my narwhal out of. And because it's a little thinner, I'm going to use a slightly smaller hook. And this is it's fiddly work, so I want you guys to be patient if you're going to make this little horn with me because it is a little fiddly. So we're going to make a very small cinch circle, and you can make it the size you normally would. You just want to shrink it when you're finished. So you grab that short tail and just pull it a little slightly smaller. And into this little circle, we're going to single crochet 3. 1, 2, and 3. That's it for row 1. So take that short tail, cinch it shut, and this is why it's a little finicky. Your first stitch that you've got to work into is way over here, so there's going to be a little bit of manipulating, but that's okay because we're going to push the whole thing back into position later. So into this next stitch you're going to single crochet once and try to like poke your finger up into it to try to make it a little kind of like a little nubby thing like that, just so that you can identify the next stitches and it's a little easier to work. And into the next stitch you're going to single crochet once, because row 2 is basically just putting a single crochet in each of the stitches of row 1, and this really is finicky, so be patient. There we go. I'm not even bothering with my tail, I have to work over it. So that's the top of our little horn. Now it's going to get a little easier. So into the next stitch, you're going to single crochet, oops, fiddly fiddly, twice. So 1 and 2. I'm going to keep moving my little short tail out of the way. Into the next stitch, so find it first, stick your hook in there. You're going to single crochet 2. 1, 2. And I'm moving my little yarn tail again. Identify the next stitch, get your hook into it, and single crochet 2. Now that's the end of row 3, and you have a total of 6 single crochets all the way around. And now you're going to single crochet into each of those 6 stitches just once for row 4. So what you're doing is you've doubled up the number of stitches you started with, and now you're just sort of making the horn a little longer. Okay, that is the end of row 4. This is now where you, as an artist, decide if you want your horn to be longer or if you like it just the way it is. So I would recommend grabbing your little narwhal and deciding if you want a little baby horn or if you want it to be a little longer. Frankly, I like the stubby little horn, so I think I'm going to leave it at that. I'm going to slip stitch into the next stitch just to close the row. And then I'm going to cut off a fairly long length of tail because I'm going to sew the horn to the narwhal forehead with this bit of tail. Make sure I grab the right one, pull it through. And I'm just going to tuck the remnants of that other short tail into the horn to act as a little bit of stuffing, because it's such a small piece that you don't actually want to put any polyester fiber fill in it. You just want to stuff it gently with whatever's left of that little tail, and that'll give it all the shape it needs. There you go. And then with your yarn hook, or I should say your yarn needle, you just sew that onto the forehead of your narwhal. Okay, I've sewn the little horn onto the forehead of my narwhal, and I'm just going to make a little knot here with my yarn, just to knot off that sewing tail. There we go. And I'm just going to weave the whole thing into the body of the little whale, and that will keep it from unraveling. There. One horn. Now we're going to make his cheeks. I'm going to use this nice soft baby fingering yarn in pink for the cheeks, and because it's a really thin yarn, so about a size 2, I'm going to use an even smaller hook, and this one is a size 3mm. And this is really simple. Each cheek you're going to make 2. You're going to make a little slip circle, or sorry, a cinch circle. And into each of these cinch circles, you're going to single crochet 4. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Cinch it shut. Identify that first single crochet you made, put your hook into it, and then just slip stitch to close the circle. Cut enough tail so that you can sew the little cheek onto your narwhal, and that's it. One round little cheek. So you're going to go ahead and make 2 of those. You're going to take your needle and thread, and you're going to decide where it is you want to put your eyes. So I like them fairly wide apart on my little amigurumis, especially since whales usually have their eyes at the side of their head. So I'm going to put them on either side of my head. I'm going to take the needle and thread, and right about where I want to put my first eye, pick up a little bit of yarn. Get it ready for sewing. Thread on a bead. And I'm going to sew just that first stitch of the bead down. And then I'm going to go all the way through to the other side where I want my other eye to be. Careful not to poke my finger. And I'm going to thread up the other bead. And then I'm going to just go back and forth through each eye, pinching it a little as I go, just so that he's got a little kind of defined character on his face. And 2 or 3 back and forth should do it, especially if you doubled up your thread. There we go. Oops. And once you decide that you think your eyes are on nice and tight, you're just going to knot up your thread. So pick up a little tiny bit of yarn somewhere close to your eye, and not twice, and then weave it into the body of your whale. There you go. And now his eyes are on. Now you can sew on the cheeks, and you're going to use the yarn needle, and you're going to, I usually like to put my cheeks right underneath the eyes. So I will pick up a stitch right about where I want to start sewing. Thread the tail. And I'm going to sew all the way around. Now if you've got little tails sort of from the previous, like if you've got your little tails, just pull them directly into the body before you start. So somewhere near where your cheek's going to be, just grab a hook and you can just pull it into the body. You can weave that in later and then it's out of your way. So you can continue sewing and not accidentally use the wrong thread. Once I've sewn on both cheeks, I bring both the sewing threads through a common sort of stitch space in the top of the narwhal, and then I knot both those pieces together, and then I pull it down into the body of the narwhal, and that saves you from having knots on the front or the top side of your work, which I like to use that technique for just about every single little project I do that requires applique on top of things. And then you just weave in all of your other little pieces. And our happy little narwhal's almost done. He just needs a big happy smile. And for that, I'm going to use this really pretty sparkly little yarn. Now you can use anything here. You can use more cheek yarn, you can use yarn that you made your horn out of, you can use embroidery floss, you can use whatever you want. So I'm just going to cut a short length, not too long, no longer than 12 inches or 30 centimeters. Thread it up through my yarn needle, and I'm going to go up through the bottom of my narwhal, and I'm going to come out next to the cheek, so practically underneath the cheek on one side, and I'm going to leave a little bit of yarn there for knotting and bringing in afterwards. So that's something that I'm going to tie it up with. I'm going to decide kind of where I want my happy little smile to go. I think right across the front like that is pretty cute. I'm going to tuck it in on the other side, and then I'm going to bring it out right in the bottom middle of where I want the smile to dip. And I'm not going to do this too tightly, just so I've got a little bit of play, because I want to be able to sort of tug it down a little bit. And actually I'm going to move that up just a little bit. There. Then you're just going to go back down through the same hole, and I'm going to go back out through the hole that I entered in. And then you can just kind of play with it. And if you want to make it sort of anchored in two places, then you can do the same thing all over again. So I think I'm going to anchor it in two places. Just because I want him to have a nice, happy, even smile. So I'm going to bring my yarn back out. Yes, and I'm going to do it one more time right there. And if one's good for you, then great. If you want to do it twice, great. If you want to do it 5 times, go ahead. There, so now I've got his little smile anchored where I want it. And oh my goodness, he looks so cute. Okay, so when you're done with that, take your 2 ends that you brought out through that sort of single space in the bottom, and just like we did with the cheeks, you're going to knot both ends together. You can trim off any excess, so if you have like an extra large amount of yarn here like I do, you can just trim it off. And then poke that knot through the space and just weave the ends in. Just like that. There! And your little narwhal's all done. Sploosh! There you go, everybody! One little narwhal, or 2, or however many you have scraps to allow for. That's it for today. Thank you so much for tuning in. We really appreciate it when you do. And please, if you think of it, post pictures of the things that you make using our tutorials. You can post them to Facebook at Jayda InStitches, or you can post them to Google+, and you can also tag me with the same username. I would love to see what you guys make, because that is a particular joy for me. That's it for today. Thank you so much for tuning in. We will see you again really, really soon.